One of the unique features found inside of Omniverse Kit is a tool called Layers. Now, much like the stage is a file list, so kind of is Layers. But it's got some very neat properties that make it substantially different from what the stage does. And I'd like to go through that just in case you might have been concerned or interested in why there's this whole layers concept. So if we tab this down, we'll find that it mimics very much what we had over here in the stage, right? But what the difference between layers is that layers gives us the opportunity to separate out parts into entirely separate layers. So in a way, you can kind of think of it sort of like you would think of Photoshop layers, but I don't I don't really want to encourage that because it's not really the same thing. And I'd like to show you why. So let's just jump in and I'll explain as we go because trying to explain conceptually is just a little too technical to try to do in a video. So instead what I'd rather do is just show you exactly how this stuff works and then you can kind of piece together the idea. Okay, so the root is a layer and it's always the top layer, okay? And whatever's on the top will always take precedence. So that's the first thing that's going to be kind of critical to understand. So this root is currently our only layer. And if we hit this plus button, that will go ahead and add a new layer. But you're going to get this warning, right? And what it's basically saying is that, you know, you're at the top layer. And if I create a layer below it, well, it's not going to do anything, right? Because you're already in the root layer, so it's already taking priority, so therefore there's no point in having another layer. So would you like me to move this stuff into that lower layer? And the answer is pretty much always going to be yes here. So just go ahead and hit yes. And now you can see that it's created a layer below the root that is now being used for the storage of all this stuff, right? So that did exactly what we wanted. Okay, cool. So now what we would like to do is add a new layer, right? So let's go ahead and add one more new layer. And this one is going to be where we're going to try to do some kind of interesting things to show you exactly why it's not exactly like Photoshop layers. Because it can also hold what's called a delta or a change. And those changes can be stored and managed just like, you know, like a layer in Photoshop. So it sounds weird, but you'll see. So let's go ahead and call this this layer. You know what? Let me get out of path traced. And let me call this layer pulse changes. Okay, so we have a layer called pulse changes now. And all that I want to do is make a change, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and, I don't know, I'm going to grab this lamp, right? So I'm going to grab the lamp. Where's the lamp at? So floor lamp. And I'm just going to move it from here to here, right? So now I've made a change. And if we look inside of Paul's changes, we're going to see that the stage has a change and it's called floor lamp LOD, right? So that's the same LOD as this, floor lamp LOD 0. And basically what it said is that this little star says it's made a change. So that's called a delta. And a delta is just simply a change, right? So now this layer holds a change. So I can just turn off that layer and go back to the original. So that's pretty powerful and can be very useful. And these can be stacked. So if we make another one, right, and say, I don't know, Joe's change, right? So now we have a theoretical person named Joe. We're going to turn off my change. And now we're going to go in and grab, I don't know, the sphere light. No, let's not do that one. Let's grab the speaker. And let's move it over to the right and rotate it, right? Joe's a little more creative than I am. So, and he gets a little excited and wants to move this armoire as well. So he grabs the armoire and moves that over a bit and says, you know, this record player just shouldn't really be here, right? So he's going to slide it over and, you know, it's a little bit of a messier design. So he thinks that it should be tilted a little bit, and maybe he also wants this other speaker rotated. I don't know, making a lot of decisions for Joe here, but that's what we're going to say Joe wants. So there we go. Joe's super happy now, right? So he says, okay, that's good. There's my changes. So now we can simply swap between the original, Paul's change, and Joe's changes, right? So this is where these can become really powerful. So that's kind of looking at the way that it deals with deltas. But there's other things that we can do in layers as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and just delete out our layers. I think I have to turn these on first. So I'm just going to right click and say delete the layer, and yes. And this is just going to get rid of any of those changes that were inside of that layer. So that's what's also nice, is all this stuff is non-destructive. You know, that's another really nice capability of all this, is that everything's non-destructive. So okay, cool. So we're back to where we were. Now let me go ahead and create a new layer. And there's something else that's really important to show you. When we right click, we have the opportunity to say set authoring layer. Because I was always hitting the plus sign, it was automatically setting that layer for me. But if you want to switch what layer you're working in, this is how you do it. Okay, so you just right click and then say set authoring layer, and that makes that the active layer that you're working in. Okay, so I want to make sure that I'm set actively in layer 2. And now what I can do is I can actually bring in other assets as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and bring in, I don't know, another floor lamp, right? So I'll bring this guy in, and I think I have him set to 3, 3, 3. Yep. So there I have this guy. And now you can see that I've got my floor lamp, and this time, instead of it being a delta, it's showing us that it's a model. Okay, so that's now a different layer with new objects, and this is where it is like Photoshop, right? So each layer can hold stuff, and you can turn on and off those layers, and higher up the chain is equal to what shows. Okay, so that's the next kind of cool thing that we can do here, and of course we can move that stuff around, and you know, there we have it. And if we disable that layer, well, then it doesn't exist because it's not in that layer at all. Okay, so yeah, so that's a nice quick introduction to layers, and I hope that kind of explains some of the mystery of why we have layers and stages and why they're different. And yeah, I hope you have found this very useful. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.